Meriam Ibrahim Ishag was sentenced to the death penalty after she converted to Christianity in order to be with her Christian husband. Now, her husband is an American, but they were living in Sudan. And after she was sentenced to the death penalty, she attempted to leave the country with her husband and her 2 children. However, unfortunately, they got caught. But there is good news. Right now, she and her family are safe. They are at the U.S. Embassy, and they're trying to see what steps they can take next. Now, according to Raw Story, she is charged with forgery and providing false information in relation to a South Sudanese travel document she used to try to leave the country on Tuesday. Now, American officials are trying to get involved to see what they can do for her, but this is something that is taking place in Sudan, where Sharia law indicates that if you are born a Muslim or if your father is a Muslim, you must continue to identify as a Muslim. In her case, her father was Muslim, but her mother was Catholic. Her father left the family when she was very young, so she never really identified as a Muslim. But it doesn't matter. She was sentenced to the death penalty anyway, and the story continues to unfold.
She's got an American husband, Daniel Wani, and they've got kids together. So I think there's an excellent argument to be made that she should come home with him, home meaning America. I think it'd be nuts if we didn't give her asylum. I would be shocked if we didn't give her asylum. She converted to Catholicism, I mean, like you said, her mother was already Orthodox Christian, so it depends on your interpretation of Christianity and conversion. Right before her marriage. So she's getting married, she converts, so this thing that happens all across the world. And they say, okay, somebody found out apparently, obviously, and they said they're going to put her to death. Look, why? I know we've gone through this before, but why do you need to kill someone if they leave your religion? I mean,
it goes back to insecurity, right?
Can't your religion stand up for itself? I mean, if it loses a debate, it has to kill the opponent? Like, that means that it can't stand up to a debate. That means it's not true. I mean, you're admitting defeat by saying, well, obviously I can't convince you to be Muslim, so I have to kill you, right? Isn't that a spectacular admission of weakness? That your ideology, like if I lose a debate and you're no longer agnostic and you become Christian or Muslim or whatever, so what? Yeah. What do I care? Go on about your married life. It's a massive showing of insecurity. It's really sad. And look, to me, converting from one religion to another is super goofy, but by God, we got to save her life.
This gets into a murky area for me. Like, you know, people talk. So, the Sharia law really says this, that so now people always make the case, and we just did a story about this. So where are the rest of the Muslims screaming about this, right?
Now, 2 parts to that. One, it depends on your interpretation of Sharia law. It's like saying, well, Christianity says you should execute all the kids who talk back to their parents, right? I mean, that's in the Bible. It's literal. It's in the Bible. That's what Christianity says, right? Well, it depends. I mean, most Christians don't abide by that. Are there fundamentalist nuts who don't eat shellfish and who try to follow Leviticus word by word, let alone all the Bible? Yeah, of course there are. That doesn't mean they represent all Christians. Now, unfortunately for Islam, it is broader than that because obviously you have a whole government here that's doing this, right? And there is no uprising around it. It doesn't mean that the majority of people in Sudan necessarily agree with it, okay? But there is no uprising, so you can take that for what it's worth. Now, when you talk about all the other Muslims, and remember, most Muslims are not Arab, right? So Sudan's an interesting case. It's in Africa, and you know, you get into, once you're in Africa, some are Arab, some are not considered Arab. It gets complicated, right? But the top 5 Muslim countries are not at all Arab. They're Indonesia, Pakistan, India has an enormous Muslim population, etc., right? So a lot of this would not be the interpretation of Islam in other parts of the world, right? So why would an Indian Muslim have to come out and apologize for something that's going on in Sudan? Why would a Muslim here in America, it'd be kind of weird, like insecure thing to be like, oh, I apologize for that. But you didn't have anything to do with it, and you don't agree with that interpretation of Sharia law. It's like making every Christian in the country apologize for idiot fundamentalists here who say wacky things about how gay people want to have sex with dogs and stuff like that. You don't all have to apologize for that. Why would you have to?
Yeah, Another thing I want to kind of bring up is like this whole notion of morality, right? So you have like terrorist groups like Boko Haram that go around kidnapping young girls and then they rape them, they sell them off into slavery, and they do it in the name of morality. And in this particular case, you have a government that is advocating for the death of a woman who changes her religion or converts. And you're doing that in the name of morality, knowing that she has 2 children, one of which was born behind bars because of what you did to her. I mean, how do you argue that that's moral? How do you argue that your religious doctrine is something that people should follow or believe in when it leads to death and destruction, when it leads to actual families being ripped apart? It doesn't make any sense.
Look, man, culture is a scary thing because it's not just the government. In this case, they say that the family says if she's acquitted of the crime, they'd carry out the death sentence anyway. Which is, and it happens, there's these things called honor killings. Whenever anybody talks about honor, run for the hills, because somebody's getting killed, okay? And so it is grotesque, and part of the reason why I'm against religion in the first place, not because every religious person is this extreme, but because it is in the text, so it allows for people to say, well, it's in the text. I mean, what can I do? Whether it's the Quran in this case or the Bible, it says you should execute your kids if they talk back to you. It says that if you eat shellfish, we should stone you to death, right? It says that. So if you eat shrimp, the text says I'm supposed to murder you, right? So, I mean, they asked me why I'm against it. It's not true. That's why I'm against it. It's not that the world would be lovely and peaceful and nobody would ever kill each other if these texts didn't exist and these religions didn't exist. Of course not. But why give people an excuse?